My name is Al Hogan, A-L-H-O-G-A-N, and I'm a detective with Atlanta Police.
Good morning, Detective Hogan.
Good morning to you, sir.
Can you tell the court how you are currently employed, sir?
I am a detective with Atlanta Police. Currently, I'm assigned to general investigations out on Fulton Industrial, but prior to that, I was a homicide investigator for about 10 years.
And Detective Hogan, can you tell the jurors how long you have been employed with the City of Atlanta Police Department?
I have been certified police officer since 1987. I had a couple of different jobs with the sheriff's departments and the air marshals, but anyway, I landed in Atlanta about 15 years ago.
And you said you had been a police officer since 1987. Prior to working with the City of Atlanta Police Department, where were you in law enforcement?
I started in the jail in Fayette County, was there for a few months. They put me on the road, was certified then in 1987. I worked as a road deputy in Fayette County. I was promoted to detective, worked undercover narcotics locally, and then I was assigned for a good many years, 10 years or so, to the DEA task force at the Atlanta airport. We did drug interdictions there. In between there, I spent a brief period of time as a federal air marshal. This was before 9/11, and that job wasn't for me, so I came back. And that's when I went on through with DEA and then eventually landed in Atlanta about 15 years ago.
Now, you, a few minutes ago, told the jurors that you were assigned with the homicide department for 10 years?
Yes.
And can you tell the jurors, were you assigned with the homicide unit here with the City of Atlanta Police Department back in February of 2019?
I was, yes.
And can you tell the jurors a little bit about, I guess, how you're assigned specifically to any homicide case that you're working here in the City of Atlanta?
It is the luck of the draw. We're all in a rotation. There's a big board in the office. There's about 17 of us that are in the rotation. About 6 of us that work cold cases. At the time, I was in the rotation, and your name is on a magnetic strip with a label on it, and everybody's name's in a row or in a column. As murders occur, the person from the top catches the murders. He's the lead, he or she's the lead investigator, and they go to the bottom, and everybody moves up. On this particular day, I was at the top.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors on February 23rd of 2019, were you dispatched or called to come out to the location of 50 Mount Zion Road?
Yes, I was.
And can you tell the jurors what was the reason you were dispatched to that location?
There had been a homicide, a criminal homicide, what they suspected to be a criminal homicide, and they asked homicide to come to work the case.
And is that address 50 Mount Zion Road? Is that here in the City of Atlanta, Fulton County?
It is. It's in southeast Atlanta.
Okay. And when you, I guess, can you tell the jurors, we've heard about different zones that are within the City of Atlanta. Which zone does this location fall within?
Zone 3.
Okay. And the Zone 3, does that include the area of like Cleveland Avenue?
It does, yes.
Okay. Now, can you tell the jurors when you arrived to the incident location, can you kind of describe for them what kind of property it was? Was it a business? Was it a residential location?
It's an apartment complex.
Okay. And were you the first to arrive on scene?
No, sir.
Now, with not being the first to arrive and being, I guess, assigned as the lead detective because you're number 1 in the rotation, can you tell the jurors a little bit about the first things that you do when you interact with other first responders who arrive before you, other officers and detectives?
Sure. So they, just by the act of being there and doing their job, they've gathered some information that may be interesting to me or help me with my investigation. So of course, I get there, observe how things are laid out. They have delineated the crime scene and what they think the crime scene is, so they mark that out with yellow tape, trying to make that a pretty big area. This particular one was a fairly big crime scene. So I could see that when I pull in, and then I speak with the two officers that are watching the crime scene log. I speak with the general investigator who has started the crime scene drawing. I talk with the ID technicians that are there and I assist them and make sure that any evidence that I see on the scene that I'm interested in or like for them to gather or document, I make sure they do that. And I just try to glean as much information from what they have from them so I can help me further my investigation.
Now, after speaking with other members of law enforcement who are on scene before you, can you kind of describe, I guess, the layout? You said that this was an apartment complex or a residential complex. A little bit about the layout of the complex as you first observed it when you arrived.
Yeah, it's a large complex in two phases. There's a Mount Zion Road. Obviously, it faces Mount Zion. The address is 50 Mount Zion. Then there's a phase, I'll call it phase 1, which is in the front that's up closest to Mount Zion. There's a creek that runs behind that phase 1 is a creek, so there's a bridge and an access road down one side of it. I think it's the east side of the property that goes past over the creek, and then there's a large recreational area, a big grass field, and then a playground for kids. And then the second phase is in the back, but there's only one way in and out to get to the second phase, and it's in the back of the property across the creek. This crime scene encompassed all of the access road to get to the phase 2, and all the way up into a pretty good portion of phase 2 where the road runs up into the parking lots, the access into the phase, the buildings in the phase 2.
Yes. Can you tell the jurors, is that building that you can kind of barely see at the top of State's Exhibit 11NN, is that the first phase or the first building of the complex?
That's correct, yes.
And then do you see in the middle of State's Exhibit 11NN, it looks like something, looks like a brown kind of something that's separating the grass in the middle of State's Exhibit 11NN?
Right here.
So, in the middle of State's Exhibit 11NN, you see trees, and there's this.
Oh, that's the creek.
Okay.
There's the bridge.
And then it's the area that you described, I guess, where the playground and things, the recreation area.
It's under here, under the trees, back over here in this area.
Okay, so it's towards the, I guess, the left side, kind of middle of State's Exhibit 11NN.
That's correct, yes, sir.
Okay, now you described to the jurors briefly about the second phase or the second half of the apartment complex. Do you see that phase in a State's Exhibit 11NN?
I do. It's this phase here.
Okay, and can you tell the jurors what areas in State's Exhibit 11NN, if you can see it, were pertinent to your investigation in relation to the crime scene?
Immediately when I pulled up, I parked in the parking lot up here, if you can imagine. The phase goes up Mount Zion Road would be up here. I parked my car outside the crime scene tape and walked in. I checked in with the crime scene technician. Immediately I could see that there was a blue car resting against the fence, and I think there was a big rock there it ran into right here, where there was some stuff on the ground and stuff on the car. And as I walked up, of course, that's going to be pretty interesting. It's not supposed to be there. So as I walked up, I saw that it was part of the crime scene. There was blood in the passenger seat. There were bullet holes in the car. There were shell casings on top of the car. Items of clothing were on the ground and on top of the car. And then as I walked further past, I could see there were some tire tracks that were through the grass here, beside the building here, as well as more shell casings that were kind of scattered out in this area over here. And then they had crime scene tape stretched out across here and across there to deny any access into the crime scene.
Now, you talked about crime scene tape and things of that nature. When you arrived, had the crime scene been fully secured?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell the jurors a little bit about how that's done and why that's done?
Yeah, well, we're trying to preserve evidence. Everything in there may have something of value to us that we could use to further investigation. So obviously we don't want anybody to tamper that either on purpose or by accident. So we try to protect it. We try to make it as big as the officers that responded made it as big as they thought they needed to protect everything that I just described to you. The shell casings are easily kicked or moved. We don't want to touch anything that may have DNA or fingerprint evidence on it. There's just lots of things we need to try to protect so we don't damage our own investigation.
And Your Honor, can I approach the witness?
Yes, you may.
I want to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibits 48 NN through 67 NN. If you'll just flip through those, have you had an opportunity to go through those prior to your testimony here today?
I've seen them before, yes.
And as you're flipping through them, I guess what are State's Exhibits 48 NN through 67 NN?
These are all crime scene photographs from the scene.
And do the photographs in State's Exhibits 48 NN through 67 NN fairly and accurately depict the crime scene, 50 Mount Zion Road, when you arrived on February 23rd of 2019?
Yes.
Around at this time, the state would tender what's been marked as State's Exhibit 48 NN through 67 NN.
Those are admitted.
Now, you talked about the area of, I guess, where you said it was a blue vehicle.
Yes.
And in your investigations, did you determine what type of vehicle it was?
I do. It was let me look at my notes here for the year model, but it was a Dodge Charger.
Just looking at your report.
Yes.
Help refresh your recollection?
Say again?
Is reviewing your report, will that assist you in the refreshing?
Yes, I'm just trying to get a 2014 Dodge Charger.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors when you arrived and began to investigate and look around the Dodge Charger, was it occupied? Was there anybody in it?
No, sir.
Okay. Can you tell the jurors, you talked about the tire marks that you had seen. Can you describe the condition of the vehicle as you began to investigate and process the vehicle?
Well, we had run the tag, or somebody run the tag, and it came back stolen out of Cobb County. It did have some defects in it. It had several, which appeared to be bullet holes to me, from my experience. And there were 12 of them total. Again, there was a large amount of blood in the passenger seat, front passenger seat, and some clothing. A baseball hat was on top of the car. There was a projectile that fell out of the hat when we picked it up. And then there was, other items inside the car that were gathered and documented.
And in 16 and Detective Hogan, can you kind of point out for the jurors the areas in which you just described as defects? I think you said 12 in the Dodge Charger.
Yep. You can look pretty close. You can see whatever's kind of out of place. In this particular image, my memory serves right. This white is a defect. You can see the different whites that stand out pretty readily, and you can see why I'm assuming they're bullet holes. But in that particular picture, I see four defects.
Okay. And you said that around the car, was there, I guess, ballistic evidence also located, I guess, on the car and surrounding it?
Yes, there were shell casings. Off the the top of my head, I don't remember how many, but there was 2 or 3 on top of the car, I think. Maybe that's what that is. But there was, maybe up here, were spent shell cases. They'd been fired and ejected out of the car, out of the gun and landed on top of the car.
And can you,
Objection, Your Honor, that's speculation.
Sustained.
well, you said they were spent shell casings. How did you know that they were spent?
They didn't have the bullet in them anymore.
Okay. Now, can you tell the jurors, as you're kind of walking around and observing and processing the scene, are you being assisted by members of the Atlanta Police Department's crime scene tech unit?
Yes, and they were there before me, and they started working the crime scene, so they were really very familiar. They showed me a lot of stuff, and then I just went in behind them and made sure that everything they showed me I was interested in, and make sure that if there's anything that I saw that they didn't know about, and make sure they knew about it to gather it.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, as it relates to your working in conjunction with the crime scene techs that were present that early morning, what type of shell casing do you remember was identified as the shell casings found around the car and in the general area?
On the car, and then a little further up on the crime scene, they were all smaller caliber shell cases, like 9 millimeters.
Okay.
Later on, we did find some 7.62 as well, some larger caliber.
And you said around the car, and then I guess a little bit further up from the car. I'm going to show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 52NN. Can you tell the jurors when it comes up what to your recollection, the yellow placards in this photo are marking or representing?
Sure. You can barely see them on this one, but there's a little yellow square there and another one up around the corner. Those are placards. They have numbers on them. ID techs, when they document stuff, they document it right where it says. So they put the placards up next to or adjacent to the pieces of evidence, and then take pictures and document where they found it. Later on, after they do that, then they'll gather the evidence, and it'll be delineated on their report by that number, or whatever number it was nearest to the piece of evidence. But this, if you can imagine, if you were in this picture, if you turned around directly 180 degrees, that's access road that goes out to the front of the property, and then the blue car is down right behind you.
Now, if you are looking at the right side of State's Exhibit 52NN, and it looks like a raindrop that reflected off from the photo, but do you see where there's a vehicle or a red car kind of in the middle right-hand side of State's Exhibit 52NN?
Yes.
Can you tell the jurors, if you continue to go straight down the access road and take a right where that red vehicle is, can you tell them where would that take you?
That takes you into the parking lot in between 2 of the buildings in the complex.
Okay. And is that the buildings that I guess would be the front buildings, the first one we saw that was closest to Mount Zion Road, or the back set of buildings?
That's right.
That's what?
It's a back set,
Back side. Okay.
phase 2.
Now, you referenced or talked to the jurors a little bit about the fact that there were additional shell casings that were found in a different area in relation to the vehicle.
That's correct.
And using State's Exhibit 10 and Detective Hogan, can you kind of orient the jurors as to the area that you described that you found the second set of shell casings?
Sure. Well, I told you about the shell cases that were on top of the car. Those were 9 millimeters. There were several more that were scattered around in the roadway and the grass over here in this area. And then there were several that were found in the grass. These are the larger caliber shell casings over here. Over here at the corner of the building and around and on top of the car were the 9 millimeters. The larger caliber 7.62 were in this area over here.
And if you can recall, in that area that you just kind of described and oriented the jurors to, where the second set of shell casings you found, how many did you find? If looking at your report will refresh your recollection.
Yeah, let me look and see.
Just,
I don't
af-
remember.
If and when your recollection is refreshed, just looked up and I'll re-ask you the question.
15. Thank you.
All right.
15 7.262 caliber shell casings.
So it sounds like after looking at page 4 of your report, your recollection is refreshed?
It is refreshed.
Okay. And you described them to be a larger type of, or larger caliber of ballistics or shell casings. Can you describe to the jurors a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, you know, a handgun is a smaller caliber, usually it's somewhat smaller caliber. Police carry 9mm or 40 calibers. Each caliber is a different size. So each shell casing is going to be a different size to accommodate whatever size bullet it shoots. For example, the 9mm the bullets are about as big approximately as the end of your pinky finger. So the shell casing has to be the size for that to fit in. A 7.62 is normally associated with a long rifle, like an assault rifle. And it's a much bigger bullet. It has a lot more gunpowder behind it. It shoots a lot faster and longer. So the shell casing for that is going to be larger and distinctive for that caliber of weapon.
And based on your investigation, is it, or based on what you saw and observed, were, I guess, all of the shell casings that you saw was larger, the 7.62, kind of grouped in one area?
Yes,
And
they were all
then-
found in one area.
The shell casings that you described earlier, a few minutes ago, that you said were smaller caliber or 9mm, were those all kind of grouped within, one small area, separate and distinct from the
The
7.62?
majority of the shell casings, the 9mm were discovered here. The only exception to those would be the ones that were found on top of the vehicle where it was abandoned.
Now, can you tell the jurors, do you see the red line that kind of travels throughout State Exhibit 10NN?
The long one?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you tell the jurors, based on the investigation at that point, the shell casings that you had found in different areas and the tire marks that you described, why, I guess, that red line is there and what it represents?
For me, that was, I created this, so, I know it's pretty rudimentary, but I'm not a computer guy. The little red dots it's not accurate, but it just indicates where the shell casings were found. This was a line based on my investigation of where the victim said they had parked. And this is the access that they took trying to get out when the shooting broke out. So there was a shooter that came out here when it started shooting. They drove out. Another shooter down here drove past, walked. Well, you can see the tire tracks in the grass. Drove off the road, back on the road. The car was not functioning, so they rolled to a stop here and then exited. It's just a line to kind of show where I thought they went when the incident happened.
And I'm going to show you what's been marked and tendered and admitted into evidence. It states that it's 59NN. And in this photo, do you see kind of the grouping of the yellow placards that are seen within States Exhibit 59NN?
Yeah, same procedure as what I described earlier. Where there is a shell casing, they put a placard, and next to it is a corresponding number that indicates that particular shell casing. This is coming out from the Rick Breezeway, and this is where they, all the different placards indicate the different shell casings that were found.
And do you see kind of in the middle of States Exhibit 59NN towards the, I guess, the breezeway? Let's see if we can get this out of your way. There we go. In this area right here?
Yes.
Are those placards, are they also the larger caliber shell casings?
Yeah, they were all the same shell casing.
Okay.
Caliber. Yeah.
And are photographs taken of each placard from, a far away distance or a full range distance, mid range, and then close up?
Yes.
Okay. To your recollection, was that done in this case?
I wasn't present, but I'm assuming they do it the same way every time.
Okay.